Hello, Adolfo from Portainer, and in this video, we're going to present the top 5 features of our latest Portainer Community Edition 2.5.1, starting with the ability to do backups and restore these backups into Portainer instances that you can actually use to also port Portainer to new instances if you want to migrate your Portainer to a new machine or to a new type of deployment. That could be Docker or Kubernetes. Show how many Docker pools you have available if you're logging into Docker Hub as an anonymous user. Redeploy externally deployed Kubernetes applications, add user access control for ACI endpoints, and introduce the ability to separate Docker security settings for each Docker endpoint. Okay, so let's start with backing up and restoring Portainer data. So I'm going to log into my main Portainer instance. And here I have two endpoints, a Docker endpoint and a Kubernetes endpoint. I also have a set of users here, myself, Joe, the admin, and Peter. I have registries. I have a private registry actually that I use. Endpoints, these are the endpoints you see right when you log into Portainer. And I want to make sure I can back up all this info to a file that I want to password protect. Download. And there you go. I have my password protected Portainer backup. It comes with a timestamp on it. So now I'm ready to restore this into a new Portainer instance. For whatever reason, you might want to migrate the machine, or you just had to, back up and restore this somewhere else, right? Right, so let's go here to a new instance I have called Portainer Prod. And instead of creating a new admin user, I can just go ahead and restore this from file. I can select the file here. There it is. Type in the password. And there you go. Portainer is restoring my backup into this new instance. I can now log in as my admin Joe. And in this new instance, you can see that the host name is different here. I have the same two endpoints, users, registry, everything has been restored. So yep, this is a very interesting feature that we have now on this new version of Portainer. Okay, the other very interesting feature we have here is how many Docker pools you have. So let's say I go to a node, a Docker node for now, and I want to deploy a container. When I click on Add Container, I will see here, you are currently using anonymous account to pull images from Docker Hub and will be limited to 100 pulls every 6 hours. So I have remaining 99 out of 100 pulls in these 6 hours. I just pulled one image, so I'm good for now. And you can see this information not only here. You can see the same information under images. And if you're using Kubernetes, you can also see this information when you deploy an application. So you should be able to also have an idea of many Docker pools or images you can pull from Docker Hub. Well, so this is another very interesting feature that allows you to control how many Docker images you're pulling from Docker Hub. Okay, so let's go to the next feature, which is the ability to redeploy external Kubernetes applications. Let's see what I mean with that. So I have here my two endpoints. I'm going to go into my Kubernetes cluster, and here I have a Nginx pod that was deployed externally, as you can see here with this label. Now I have the ability to redeploy this pod just by clicking on redeploy, even though it was deployed externally. Right, and there you go. So you see it's terminating the original deployment, and it's now redeploying Nginx. Here, let's give it a refresh. Okay, so it's been redeployed. So let's take a look at this next feature, that is Rpac for Azure ACI and containers. So as you know, you can add managed access to endpoints here via Portainer. So here, for instance, I could add It manages access to this endpoint, which is an Azure ACI endpoint, to a given user, like say Peter, right? But not only that, now we can add access control per containers. So we see that in this endpoint, we have, well, the Portainer agent running. We can add a container. I'm going to call it Nginx. And I'm going to restrict access to this container to Peter only. So I'm going to show you how this works in practice. Let's go back to the endpoint. I'm going to leave access to everyone here. I'm also going to add access to Adolfo. Right. So here, this container Nginx that is being set up is only available to the user Peter. Now let's add another container, Caddy. And now it's going to be restricted to the user Adolfo. Okay, so let's log in as Peter. Okay, so we see that in this endpoint, Azure ACI endpoint, we have 3 containers. Let's log in as Peter. And you see that Peter has access to this endpoint because he has access to this one container only, Nginx. If we log in as Adolfo, he has access to 2 endpoints, but in the Azure ACI endpoint, he only has access also to 1 container. And that container is Caddy. So you see now how you can manage access to specific containers on your Azure ACI endpoint. Okay, the last feature I want to show you here is the ability to have separate Docker security settings per endpoint. Right, so how this works, let me show you. I have here now 4 endpoints, 2 Dockers, 1 Kubernetes, and 1 Azure ACI. Let me just leave the Docker ones. So now I only have my 2 Docker endpoints. So let's say this Docker endpoint, which is node 0, I want to set its security features here. I go to host setup and I see that I have several options I can enable or disable. And I'm going to enable a couple here and this almost last one and this one here. Right, so you see we have these 2 host and file system security features enabled, and also these last 2 ones. I'm going to save the configuration. This is for node 0, as you can see here. And now let's go to node 3. And we will see that node 3 has other security features for this endpoint. Right, so with this, you can very easily manage your security features for each of your Docker instances that you have via Portainer. Right, so well, I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you enjoyed the new features we are here presenting to you. They're very interesting features, and we'll always be releasing cool stuff. So please stay tuned for our next announcement. Thank you very much.